Yeah, hello and welcome to today's episode of Tech Roles Uncovered. My name is Sarah and I'm one of the founders of the Tech Leaders Academy. At Tech Leaders Academy, we are offering trainings and events for tech professionals who want to progress in their careers. And one of these events is this one you joined today. Yeah, it's Tech Roles Uncovered. This is a live series, where we are uncovering different roles in tech. Actually, this is the third episode of season 2, and yeah, as I said, each week we are specializing on a specific role in tech, and therefore we always invite a guest. Yeah, and we discuss the role together. And if you have any questions during the stream, feel free to use the comment sections on the channel on which you are watching us right now. So we are streaming to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch, and all of these channels have these comment sections, and there you can participate and interact with us. Yes, and today we are talking about the role of a research scientist. And therefore, I invited another female guest. And yes, this guest I know, or we know each other from being in the same online data community. And I'm not 100% sure where I recognized her, but I think it was in the introductory channel where she was introducing herself and her career, and that she is, or that she was at this time a research scientist at Amazon Alexa. And yeah, this was something that I found quite interesting because I haven't talked to any research scientist before, and I thought this could be like a good opportunity to invite her to this live series. And yeah, she, as I said, she worked at Amazon Alexa, but she left the company just recently, and now she is starting as a freelancer. So I'm happy to have her here with me today. Here is Verena Weber. Welcome. Hi, Verena.
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, thank you a lot for inviting me. Definitely my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always also our pleasure. Thank you, first of all, for taking the time and talking with us about the role of a research scientist. However, as you know, I like to start with an icebreaker question also for you. And the question that I prepared for you is, which country is at the top at your bucket list for your next trip and why?
Oh, wow, interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple of countries coming to my mind. I think one of the first ones was Bhutan.
Mhm.
I think it sounds very appealing because I imagine it to be very quiet, and I imagine to have the opportunity to visit a lot of monasteries there. So
Mhm.
I'm very interested in Eastern religions. So
Mhm.
this, I think, would be very nice for me to see. Other than that, I also thought immediately about Nepal.
Mhm.
I really like hiking, and of course, the Himalayas there. I think it's definitely on my bucket list to go there
Oh,
one
that's
day.
cool. So I chose this question because I know that you like traveling a lot. So you have been to some countries, I guess. So do you know approximately how many countries you have been visiting or you visited already?
I never counted,
Mhm.
but I think, yeah, definitely 20,
Oh,
maybe. Yeah, I
that's
mean, I
some.
lived in China for 2 years
Mhm. Oh, cool.
and definitely had the chance to travel a lot from there, then across Asia, and that was really cool.
Nice. Good. Thank you for this. So, yeah, that was the fun part, so to say. Nevertheless, okay, our interview shouldn't be only so serious, but now we are switching to the main part, talking about your role and your career. And yes, I introduced you a little bit, but maybe you can also introduce yourself from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. I can give you a little bit of an overview of my steps so far. So originally, my background is in statistics.
Mhm.
Well, I have a master in statistics, and during that time, I discovered machine learning.
Mhm.
And basically did like one course and then liked that more than the traditional statistics courses, so then decided to go in that direction as a career. And originally, I actually started working for a consultancy, Deloitte, because I mean, something you couldn't imagine today anymore, but back at the time when I was looking for a job, no company in Berlin was hiring a single data scientist. And I moved to Berlin for my master's and then also wanted to stay in the city. So I was looking for a job as a data scientist and then found one at Deloitte. So started out in consulting. Then briefly moved on to Oetker Digital, which was kind of similar setup, but in-house, so in-house consulting for the Oetker Group. And then moved on to mobile.de, which is a platform for buying and selling cars, which at the time was still part of eBay. And yeah, after that, landed a job at Amazon where I was working for the last 3.5 years for Alexa. So I was really focused on natural language understanding and yeah, really specialized in that field, which is also a field that from the beginning I always really enjoyed working on. So that was really nice. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, I just recently left Amazon to now embark on a new journey as a freelancer. Yeah, so let's see what that is going to hold in store.
And as a freelancer, is there any any speciality that you are concentrating on? So is it still like the NLP topics or some different things?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to keep the NLP focus if possible, but it's not like I'm excluding any other things. I think really depends on what their client needs, and if I see that I can be of value there, then of course I'm also open to other topics. Yeah. Or
Yeah, nice. Actually, you're the third woman. Yeah, the third woman that I have here in the show that is just turning into a freelance career. So
okay.
for this new journey, of course, I wish you already all the best and fun, especially. And yeah, I think we
Thank
will
you.
meet. We will meet again soon. Cool. So, you already explained a bit of your previous steps, career steps, and the different, the different stations, so to say, that you had. You also mentioned your studies, the master study statistics yesterday in our in our tech check. You told me that you see yourself a bit of a career changer as well. Can you explain us a bit why do you see it like that?
Well, not really career changer, more like, I mean, I finished my master's in 2013. I mean, back at the time, maybe there was like one or two data science master
Yeah.
programs, but it was definitely not as common as it is today.
Yes.
So I think back at the time was kind of normal that you study something like statistics or math or physics or computer science and then move into that direction. But I think probably now, if you come from university, you probably would have a lot more machine learning, or you could have a lot more machine learning courses. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely there was some knowledge that I had to, yeah, keep up on, or like had to learn on the job. What was actually quite interesting is that during my studies in statistics, I just used R. So
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
know. Yeah, exactly. So then when I started moving into machine learning, I actually had to start learning Python. And yes, I mean, there was a bit of a transition there. Also, of course, natural language processing was something that I maybe scratched the surface during my machine learning course in university. But I mean, already my sister, like when she actually studied business administration, but then she could select some courses in machine learning, and there was much more about natural language processing in there already. So I think times have really changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I can agree on that. I made similar experience. Even though I did a master in business administration, I had also many statistic courses. and there we also only used R. And when I moved into data science after my studies, which was for me like a huge change actually from my initial plans that I had for my career. But then somehow I found data science and I fell kind of in love with that job. And then I had to learn SQL and
Mhm.
Python. Was it also something that you had to learn? So besides Python, that you learned SQL, or wasn't that part of your data science jobs at all?
Yes, sometimes, but I think not a very significant part most of the time. And I mean more like the basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean at Mobile, what I had to learn as well was more like was PySpark. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, which then replaced some of the SQL work.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, like before joining Amazon Alexa, your job description or job title was data scientist.
Mhm.
And then you moved or transitioned into being a research scientist. So, what is your definition of a research scientist?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I would say research scientist means that you're more focused on developing new things, whereas data
Mhm,
scientist is maybe you apply existing methods to problems, to use cases. You Yeah, it's more application based, but of course also there you might have to adjust things here and there to make it work for your specific
mhm,
application. But I think for research scientists also there is a stronger link to academia and to really cutting edge research and working on the newest kind of models, and then
mhm,
also publishing yourself.
mhm.
Um, yeah, I think that is the biggest difference. And then again, it depends on the company, right? A research
Yeah.
scientist in Amazon is very different, I suppose, from a research scientist in Google or Microsoft. And then also within Amazon, a research scientist can be very different depending on which team you work for. And it's not always very clear, right? In Amazon, again, you will also have applied scientists and data scientists, and in theory, they
Mhm.
there is a description how they differ, but then in practice, it can be very similar.
Okay, yeah. So, can you describe what your main task and responsibilities were as a research scientist, like
Yeah.
at Amazon? And then maybe we can also like compare it later on how it might be at other companies.
Mhm. Yeah, so I worked for the natural language understanding team here in Berlin, where we owned the production models for German, French, and English in countries outside the US.
Mhm,
And our main task or goal was to improve that model over time, and
mhm,
improvement in very different directions. And so could be improving the model itself, could be improving the training data, could be improving some of the workflows that we had to maintain and update the model.
mhm,
And part of it also was really training the model and releasing new updates of it. So it was basically um, a mix between research projects and then also more operational tasks.
mhm,
So I think what is important to know about the research scientist role at Amazon or Amazon in general. Amazon has this principle that we or that they always do research with focus on a customer problem. So you
mhm,
always need to either solve a customer problem or enhance customer experience. You never just do research for the sake of research.
mhm,
And I think that can be different at companies like DeepMind or Microsoft or Google Brain. Yeah.
mhm. Do you have any contacts to other research scientists working at these other companies that you just mentioned?
Not really. I mean, also, I went to conferences like normal
Mhm,
academic conferences where then, for example, I attended a talk from Sebastian Ruder, who is quite a
mhm,
known research scientist at Google. And yeah, of course, I mean, in this conference setting, you have the chance to exchange. but it's not like on a daily basis you
Mm.
would work with scientists from other companies. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like now you have experience as a data scientist, but also as a research scientist. Probably you know these full end-to-end responsibility approach that oftentimes data scientists have. So starting at understanding the business or the main problem, transferring this question into a data related question, then clean up or explore the data that is like used or should be used to solve this problem, then maybe model the data, create a machine learning model, and or use data science tactics to really solve the problem, then analyze the results or ship the model somewhere on a production basis, and later on, I don't know, maintain the whole system. So, where in this whole approach do you see the responsibilities of a research scientist?
Yeah, I mean, I think also the setup in my case is a bit different, right? I mean, we have
Okay.
a product. The product is Alexa, and we have this natural language understanding model, right? So it's not really about identifying business cases, but more like potential for improvement.
Okay. Mhm.
So I think that is one difference. I don't know if that's necessarily due to the role, but more to the setup. I think the research scientist is really also more about, okay, looking at existing literature. I mean, I'm not saying you don't do that as a data scientist, but maybe you do it more often
Hmm.
as a research scientist, and then and maybe also you have problems that maybe require a bit more complex solutions, right? I mean, as a data scientist, maybe sometimes you also work on problems that you can just solve with a random forest.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, since Alexa is based on deep learning, the complexity is already a bit bigger. But I think there's still this end-to-end process, right, where you have to identify the problem, you have to gather the data, you have to
Mm.
ensure the data is clean, you maybe have to clean it up, then have to find a solution to your problem, you have to ship it to production, and you have to monitor it somehow. So I think
Mm.
in that regard, it's similar. I think again, what I also felt like was the biggest difference to the previous roles was the complexity of models or approaches that we dealt with. But then also this part that actually writing papers was part of the role, and
Ah.
that we really also attended academic conferences. So in my roles previously as a data scientist, I mostly went to these business data science conferences like PyData. Also, there's the one in London, which I don't remember the name anymore, but yeah. But now with Amazon, we really went to these academic conferences like
Ah, okay.
EMNLP,
Mm-hmm.
ACL, and we really had a goal to publish each year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is really like a specific difference to like an ordinary data science role. We all know that the data science roles are can be quite different or broad interpreted in the different companies, but if you need to generalize it, that then this is like a big difference to data science. Okay. So now this question has to come now as a research scientist. You don't have a PhD, but this is a more academic related work. So was that something that was expected from you, or were there some maybe some assumptions that you need to work in an academic field before, or have needed to work in an academic field before?
So basically, you mean how you can get in without having a PhD? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I think it depends on the team, right? I mean, there are
Mhm.
some teams in Amazon that only hire research scientists with PhD.
Hmm.
And then there are some teams who also make exceptions, especially if you have experience in that field already. And then I think it makes sense because, first of all, like I said, it's not a really academic role like it would be in DeepMind
Mm.
or
Yeah.
or Google Brain or these research labs that Microsoft has, but you really always have this application focus, and you always also have tasks that involve contributing code to a production system or
Mm.
coding or operational tasks. So it's really not 100% this skill
Yeah.
set of academia that you need.
Mm.
And then I think the other thing why it works is because there are people in the team who have PhDs, right? And then
Hmm.
you can learn what you need from them. Like, but then of course also, I mean, I have a master, so I already wrote a thesis. I mean, I already knew how LaTeX works. I already conducted experiments before and so on. So I think for me it was possible to still catch up on that quickly and to also write papers, especially also because you never work alone, you always have your team. And I mean, in general, I'm also good in writing, so that
Hmm.
also helped me. Um, yeah, but I think in the end it depends a bit on the manager, but I have the feeling that there is this trend that if you have enough industry experience, the PhD is not always a hard requirement.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I didn't wanted to put you in some kind of box or something
No,
like that. It
good.
was just like a question that really comes to, I think, many people's mind when they hear about this role and they hear
Yeah,
that you also should be part of publishing papers, that you have some kind of experience. Of course, when you
yeah.
study, you have
I,
the
I get that.
experience. Yeah.
I mean, I would have had the same question, and I mean, maybe I can also tell how I got this role because I
Hmm. Yeah.
myself was a bit surprised. Because, yeah, when I applied at Amazon, I didn't apply for that role. Actually, I
Ah,
applied for I think it was data scientist role in Amazon Music. And
okay.
then they just matched me to this research scientist role in Alexa. And I was quite surprised myself at the time because in my head was the same thing. And I think at that time it was even more the case that for research scientists you need a PhD.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it depends on the team and it's also changing a little bit. And then there's also these roles in between, like at DeepMind, for example, there is research engineer, which
Hmm.
is like a role that supports the scientists, but then you don't need a PhD to get that role. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And then I mean I think really like if you then work with people who have a PhD, you can really learn from them what is
Yeah.
important in when you want to publish a paper and I think this is very important that you have people with that academic experience and then
Hmm.
you work as a team. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So, can you elaborate a little bit more on how your team collaborated with each other? So, how big was your team? Maybe how were responsibilities shared across each other? Or, yeah.
Yeah, I think we were like about 10 to 12 people. And yeah, like a mix of people with and without PhDs. Also, sometimes PhDs from different areas like physics, but then also people with a PhD in NLP. And yeah, and usually how it worked is, well, I mean, for the more operational stuff, you would usually just do the things yourself because that was straightforward. But then for the usually you get a project that at the beginning of the year usually you have certain goals, and then in September you usually want to have achieved that goal, and then over the
Hmm.
year you would work with other people on that goal. And it could be that you work with people from your team, but it could also be that you work with people from other teams. So there are also similar teams in Boston and in Turin and India who basically do the same but for other languages because I
Hmm.
mean there's also available in other languages. So it could also be that you would work or collaborate with them. And then, very much depending on the project or goal that you were working on, you could also work with people from a very different org or department.
Okay. Yeah, for the audience, I know we have only a couple of minutes left. So if you have questions for Verena or like in general what it is to work for Amazon, use the chance right now. You can use the chat as I mentioned, and there you can write your question, and then we see it here in our studio, and then we can answer it right away. So if you have something on your mind, use the chance right now. And yeah, meanwhile, the next question that comes to my mind is, what are the typical like career options to grow from this research scientist position? Are there any like defined career paths?
Yeah, within Amazon, yes. I mean,
Mhm.
you can, so basically, you have the role and then you can just level up, right? So you
Mhm.
could then become senior research scientist or then principal scientist and senior principal scientist. I don't know where
Mhm.
it ends, but basically, yeah, you could just level up. Or, I mean, if you want to go into people management, you can also become a science manager
Mhm.
and level up from there. What is nice about Amazon is basically you don't have to go into people management to advance your
Yeah.
career, right? So you have this
Yeah.
individual contributor track um, that gives you similar opportunities in terms of salary and influence that you can get as a people manager.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. And nowadays it gets more and more important.
Mm.
But many, especially German non-original tech companies, they really like they have some issues with installing these individual specialized technical career path besides the manager tracks. And yeah, I think companies like Amazon and Google and all the other big tech companies, of course, they found solutions many years ago that work quite well because they have so many talented tech people that want to progress in their technical career and not becoming people managers.
Yeah, and they also see that you don't necessarily need to be a good people manager to be a good tech leader and vice versa, right? I mean, you can really, I mean, at Amazon, it's still, I mean, the people manager still have a certain technical background and they still
Mhm. Yeah.
need to know what they're talking about. But of course, the more you advance, the more this also differs then, yeah. But also,
Mhm.
yeah, makes sense, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that actually this works pretty well, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, actually, we got a question. Woohoo! So, bringing it on stage. So, hi, thanks for the interview. You're welcome. Thanks for watching us and joining us. I missed the beginning, so I'm not sure this was mentioned or not. I would like to know what exactly was improved through your work and what technical solutions were, I think, needed.
yeah, so I can explain one thing. I mean, if you're interested in more, you can also check out my Google Scholar. There are all my papers up there. Basically,
Mhm.
that describes pretty well what I worked on. So, one thing that we worked on was generating adversarial examples for our model. So, basically, what we found was that already like small changes in an utterance or in a request would lead to a different classification, and things like adding please or being a bit more polite sometimes would mislead the model into a wrong classification, and of course that's not something that we want. So we basically trained a model that generates exactly those what we call adversarial attacks. So basically utterances that would trick the model into a wrong classification. And then we used that data as training data, but also as test data to then measure how much more robust the production model would become against those minor changes in the input.
Mhm.
And this is also something that we put, I mean, yeah, basically everything that we do needs to go into production. It's not just, I mean, sometimes, of course, if you start something, you find out doesn't work, it doesn't go into production. But the goal always is, right?
Yeah.
You work on something and then you put it into production.
Mm-hmm. Good. Can you repeat it one more time? What was the approach, the adversarial? I have no clue.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. I mean, I'm a little bit fast here, maybe. Yeah, adversarial examples. So
Mm-hmm.
adversarial training data,
Mm-hmm.
that is what you find in the literature, is basically training data or data that fools the model into wrong
Mm-hmm.
classifications.
Ah, yeah. Good. Okay, I see. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you for your question. And thanks, Verena, for the insights. And yeah, like interesting, already very specific. And you see here, there comes the complexity actually, because I think training an NLP or a language model in general is easy, but doing it like doing it really good, and so that this model is really like so fine tuned that it can so that it's robust enough for the different kind of prompts that are like written to it or introduced. I think that's the mastery in there, and there comes this role with a research scientist, I think, a lot more in place
Yeah, and also
than
because you have one model, right?
yeah.
And you keep working on more or less this. I mean, Alexa more or less is the same problem all the time, right? So that you have this one model and you want to keep improving it. And the more you have
Hmm.
improved, the harder it becomes to further improve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there comes another question. So now it's question time.
Um,
So, hi, Patrick. Nice to have you here. So, you are asking how much of the research goes into production. I think he's asking of some kind of maybe percentage.
yeah, I mean, I can't give you a percentage. I mean, I can talk about my work. And I mean, so let me think. I mean, okay, basically, all the papers that I published are in production, except for the last one. This one is not yet in production. But before I left, we were actually talking to a team who, I mean, because sometimes you have dependency, you cannot just implement everything yourself in production. So you have a dependency on others' teams' capacities. And we were talking to the team about getting that into production, but I think at some point, due to capacity issues, it was down prioritized. But the plan was at least there to put it into production, and it's also always the goal. And I think most of the things, at least in our team, that we really spend more time on went into production. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good quota. Um, a high percentage if you but you dedicate, I think you selected the cases and the improvements, I think, already quite well at the beginning, so you knew quite well where to work on, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's also like when you want to propose some research project, or then the focus is always like, how can we put this into production? How easy can we put it into production, and
Hmm.
what is the impact? So before you really invest a lot of time into something, you always need to answer these questions.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we have another question. I think I will use it and show it right away, and then we will also continue. So, how did you feel with this production-oriented research compared to how you would to more theoretical research? I think that's now also these fine differences to some other research scientists that are more related to academia.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I did purely or more theoretical research during my master's. I mean, since I didn't do a PhD, I never did it over like in this academic setting like a PhD student would do. So it's maybe a bit hard to compare. I mean, I think what I like about it is that you get to see the impact, and also it's maybe not, like after 6 or 9 months, you move on to a new topic, which is maybe
Yeah,
also nice instead of focusing on one for 3 years.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
good. So now you already told us a lot about your task responsibilities and how you entered the job as a research scientist. What were the skills that you learned during your research scientist role?
Wow, a lot. I mean, a lot of things. Like, I improved my coding, I improved my machine learning knowledge. I also theoretical knowledge. I improved my paper reading skills, paper writing skills.
Mhm.
I also improved a lot of soft skills, I think, like, you
Mhm.
know, how to present, communicate, but also a lot of things about productivity, how to organize oneself, how to collaborate with others, stakeholder management. It a really long list of things. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because you're still, yeah, I mean, you still work with stakeholders, right? It's not like
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we have product managers and program managers who do the majority, but I mean, as a scientist, you're still responsible to communicate your results, to understand what your customer or your stakeholder needs and how you can best help them. So, yeah, I learned a lot of things.
Mhm. What, from your perspective, would you mention as the most critical skills as a research scientist? Well,
To be
maybe from all.
successful, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, probably curiosity and
Mhm.
drive to learn and improve.
Mhm. Yeah. So more generalized skills, but they all influence the like the mastery of all the coding and soft skills, and also what you mentioned with the academic, like the reading skills and the writing skills. I think that all
Yeah,
influences
and also
this.
if you're curious and you want to improve and learn, right? I mean, that's also what drives you to dive into new approaches and new papers. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really a constant extension of your knowledge.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because then you are then, I mean, you need to be able to understand what's already there in the literature, and then how can you adapt it to your own problem. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think for that curiosity is really helpful.
Yeah, true. And was there something that you expected to do in this role that never became reality?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, I did research, I did publish papers. I mean, it's not that I did this 100% of my time, but I did that. And like I said, I went to academic conferences, which was also really nice.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. And what would you recommend to those people? Maybe also to those that just wrote us the questions that seem quite interested in the role. What would you recommend them? How can they enter this kind of role?
yeah, I mean, so first of all, I think, yeah, it depends. What do you have, a PhD or do you have a master? I mean, if you have a PhD, it's of course easier because
Mhm.
you just fulfill that requirement. But if you don't have a PhD, yeah, I think I would probably look for roles that already say in the description PhD or equivalent industry experience. So I think it's you probably cannot become a research scientist right after university without a
Hmm.
PhD. So I think first you would have to gain some experience, and then if you already know that you want to focus on a specific field, then yeah, maybe already try to gain some experience in that field. And I mean, with a PhD, so I myself was still thinking a long time about still doing one. Now I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to do one
Mhm.
anymore, because I think you learn valuable soft skills or like skills that you can transfer, but then on the other hand, it takes you a minimum of 3 years. You're very focused on one topic, and then also the literature, especially in machine learning, changes so fast that in a couple of
Hmm.
years everything's kind of outdated. So I think you really learn more. That's how to keep up with the research, how to filter the
Mm.
information, how to come up with something new. I mean, I think this is very valuable, but I think that's also something you can learn on the job
Mm-hmm.
if you're in that kind of environment with people who have PhDs, and so you can also learn it from them. But of course, if you feel like you want to do a PhD, then go ahead.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessary just to become a research scientist. And yeah, maybe also not be so focused on the name. I think also research engineer in DeepMind is
Mm.
probably also very interesting, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not exactly the same name. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. I think your hint, like regarding doing the PhD at academia, was quite interesting because, as you just mentioned, when like machine learning is changing so fast, I think you have to rush through this PhD. Otherwise, you have no chance when you start a project right now and you end it in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's
Yeah.
this skill, right, that you
Mm.
can, read papers fast and you can learn fast. And I think these meta skills is of
Yeah.
course what matters. But yeah, I'm a little bit worried that I might get bored
Yeah.
focusing on one topic for 3 years. So that is that is why I decided, for me, I'm not gonna do a PhD anymore.
Definitely a valid point here. Okay. Yeah. So let's come maybe to the last question or the second last question. So one from the audience. How do you plan to capitalize on your experiences from here? So I would rephrase it maybe so how will you use your experience from being a research scientist now in your freelance career?
Yeah, I think again, I mean, I saw some positions on Freelance Map that really were looking for more research oriented, or that were looking, or they were looking for people to work on more research oriented projects. So of course that is
Yeah.
something that I could then apply for. But again, I think here are a lot of meta skills, right, that I learned. I learned how to catch up on topics fast, how to learn things fast, how to dive deep, how to keep up with with research, and I think that's also very transferable skill. How to understand a new topic fast.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Or dive
that's
into complexity, as you just mentioned.
exactly. And then, I mean, of course, I got a deeper understanding of the theory behind deep learning, which is always helpful if you
Yeah.
work with these models, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you for this question. And there it comes my last question for this live stream because we are already quite at the end of our time. So, was there anything in your career so far that you would state as or highlight as a career booster? So, this can be some person that you met, maybe some incident, maybe some book that you read.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I would really say this whole Amazon experience,
Hmm.
because it's a very different environment compared to what I was in before in
Hmm.
many levels, right? And I mean, what I haven't mentioned so far and what I really liked about Amazon was this access to personal growth.
Hmm.
So I mean, so American companies work a little bit different, and I think one part is really that they put a lot of importance on personal growth. And there were a lot of sessions about career growth, confidence, how to plan for your career, but then also how to be productive, how to manage yourself, also even meditation and
Hmm.
mindfulness and mental health and all this kind of stuff. And I think they have this more um, integrated approach to work. And I think I've grown professionally, technically, but also personally.
Hmm.
And my mindset really shifted. And I think that was really a career booster. Yeah.
Great
And
one.
of course, you're
Yeah.
surrounded by a lot of talented people, very competent people. And yeah, Amazon culture is really very helpful. So whenever you ask people to support you or to help you, they're super nice and super willing to do that. So there were a lot of people who really helped me learn a lot of, yeah, technical but also non-technical things. So that was very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to sum it up, I think like the career boost that you mentioned, I think that's a really great one because people also outside of a company, they can invest not only in professional skills but only in their personal development, and they can always look for a new challenge like a private session, go for, I don't know, to a running tournament or whatever it is, just to grow, to get more confidence, and maybe also to overcome challenges a lot easier. And I think that's yeah, a very nice ending
Yeah, and
at
also
this.
building this self-awareness, right?
Yes,
Becoming
yes,
aware of, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I don't want to end it so exactly. However, we are a bit over the time, and I really like the statement as a nice ending. So, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time and giving us so many valuable insights to the role of a research scientist. It was a lot of fun.
For
Thank
me
you.
too. Thank you.
As I said, all the best for your next endeavors as a freelancer. I keep the fingers crossed for you. And yeah, for the audience, also thank you for participate and also for the nice questions. And next week we will be back with another role to uncover. We will be there on Tuesday already, so not on Thursday, on Tuesday, and we will have someone from Google with us, which is will be also really exciting. We will talk about the role of a technical account manager, so a bit different perspective, but still a technical role. So if you find it interesting, join us from all the different channels that you know, and yeah, then we will see you next time. So, and now have a nice evening. Thank you, Verena, and see
Thank
you
you,
soon.
Sarah. See you soon. Bye,
Bye
everyone. Thanks
bye.
for joining.